What we know for sure is that the mining season of 1868 was really dry. It was a drought. And a lot of people were thinking that fire was inevitable, but other people were, as we tend to do as humans, we're really good at being in denial, and a lot of people just thought everything would be fine. The town was a boom town. It was built in a hurry. There was no spaces between the buildings. Chimneys jutted out of roofs at odd angles. Everything's made out of wood, and the wood is tinder dry. So we know that the fire started in Adler and Barry's New Fashion Saloon, and the story that's become very popular is that a hurdy-gurdy girl, one of the dancing girls in this gold rush, was in the back room ironing her skirt, getting ready for an evening of dancing. A miner looked in the window, saw her standing there, and decided, so this is the Victorian euphemism part, that he was going to break in and steal a kiss. On the tour, we actually amend that and say, what a pretty Victorian way to say he was going to assault her. So the fire was started by an attempted assault. And in the struggle that they have with one another, they bump into the stovepipe falls off, and that's how the fire starts. So the fire starts in that saloon, and then it's a windy day, and the sparks go across the street, and within seconds you've got a fire on either side of the main street of Barkerville. There was a very small fire brigade in place, but as the story has come down to me, they knew right away that they wouldn't be able to fight the fire. I mean, you hear from firefighters today about those times when a building is so engulfed that it's just not, it's pointless to try and put it out. And that's where they were at. When I tell the story of the fire, I tell it from the perspective of Miss Wilson, who was there when the fire was happening and did lose everything. The saloon burned down, her saloon burned down. The fire takes about an hour and 20 minutes before it burns down virtually every building in Barkerville. And the next morning, everyone gets up and starts rebuilding. So in 2017, we had our first really close wildfire season. I mean, there had been wildfire seasons before where we got some of the smoke rolling in, but this was really immediate, and it was really here. And the highway was closed, and people were seeking refuge who had been evacuated from their homes. And people were here whose homes had burned down. So the way we tell the story of the fire became so much more personal, not only for the people watching us tell the story, but for the people telling the story. And I understood that I had a new obligation, and that was to really try and understand what Florence Wilson had actually gone through. You don't really understand what a life event can feel like until you've had a taste of it. You can think about what it's like to have children, but you don't know until you have children. Or you can think about what it's like to have someone close to you pass away. You don't know until it actually happens to you. So the fire story really changed for me, and I felt a great responsibility to learn more about what her experience would have been like. So the first thing I did was I went and found some former firefighters, and I talked to them about what Miss Wilson's experience would have been like, because Miss Wilson didn't leave an account of the fire. So the story that I tell from her perspective is based on me reading as much as I can about other people's experiences and making educated guesses about what it was like for Miss Wilson. So I talked to firefighters and I asked them about, how soon would she have heard the roar of the flames? And many of them said probably, based on how Barkerville is built, she wouldn't have heard the roar of the flames. And I asked, what about, is the smell of smoke overwhelming? And they said probably not. And so what I say in the tour is, I ask the audience, you might wonder, what first alerts me that something is very wrong on this end of town? Is it the smell of the smoke? And then I say, Barkerville always smells like smoke. Barkerville still always smells like smoke. And then I decided that what probably alerted Miss Wilson was the sound of people's voices. Because we know when the tone of voices shift. I can hear my children playing, And I can tell when something's wrong. It goes from being a fun celebratory sound to something else. We're really attuned to that sort of thing. And so I decided that would be how Miss Wilson was alerted. I also, in 2017, began to give a warning before I started telling the fire story, because I wanted people to be able to excuse themselves if it was too much. And I would say, I'm going to talk about this now. This is about how long it's going to be. Please feel free to go into the bakery, do something else, and you can rejoin us when you see us move along. And that was important to me because there were people in trauma standing right in front of me. And there were people in 2017 and 2018 who did leave at that moment in the tour. It's only fair to give people warning when everything is so fresh and raw for them. And now, of course, we've talked about 2017 and 2018, and here we are in 2023, and we happen to be doing this interview on the morning after a state of emergency was declared for British Columbia. So it just so happens, as we are filming this, about, an hour or two away from going and doing the town tour. And when I do, it's going to feel different than the last time I told it on Wednesday morning, because we've moved so far into this story. And interpretation is, in many ways, really sensitively reacting to what's going on around us. And a lot of times we'll take something that maybe we didn't include in our interpretation as a focus for years, and we'll put it back in based on something that's happened in the world. And so I will, when I get to the fire story today, I know that it will feel emotional and it will feel different than when I told it on Wednesday morning. And I know that everyone who's here today probably drove through a fire zone, or they're wondering how they're going to get home because they got here and now highways are closed. So, fires have become such a regular part of our summer seasons. And I've worked here for close to 30 years, and it didn't used to be that way. But that's the way it is now. So we do have to continually be as sensitive as we possibly can, but also as honest as we possibly can, that the Great Fire of 1868 is an experience that traumatized the people who were here in the same way that the wildfire season of 2023 is traumatizing our visitors.